Pollyanna, Chapter 16, A Red Rose and a Lace Shawl. It was a rainy day, about a week after Pollyanna's visit to Mr. John Pendleton, that Miss Polly was driven by Timothy to an early afternoon committee meeting of Ladies' Aid Society. When she returned at 3 o'clock, her cheeks were a bright, pretty pink, and her hair, blown by a damp wind, had fluffed into kind and curls wherever the loosened pins had given leave. Pollyanna had never seen her aunt look like this before. Oh, Aunt Polly, you've got him too, she cried rapturously, dancing around and around her aunt. As that lady entered the sitting room, "Got what, you impossible child?" Pollyanna was still revolving around and around her aunt. "And I never know I had him. You can folks have him when you don't know they've got him. Do you suppose I could? For I get to heaven, I mean," she cried, pulling out with an eager finger the straight lock above her ears. "But then they wouldn't be black if they did come. You can't hide the black part." "Pollyanna, what does all this mean?" demanded Aunt Polly, hurriedly removing her hat and trying to smooth back her disordered hair. No, please, Aunt Polly." Pollyanna's jubilant voice turned to one of the sisters. "Don't smooth him out. It's those that I'm talking about. Those darling little black curls. Oh, Aunt Polly, they're so pretty." "Nonsense. What do you mean, Pollyanna?" "By going to the Lady Aids the other day and the absurd fashion about the beggar boys." "But it isn't nonsense," urged Pollyanna, answering only the first of her aunt remarks. "You don't know how pretty you look with your hair like that." "Oh, Aunt Polly, please, may I do your hair like I did Mrs. Snow, and put it in the flower? I would so love to see you that way. Why, you'd be ever so much prettier than she was." "Pollyanna," Miss Polly spoke very sharply, almost sharply, because Pollyanna's words had given her an odd throb of joy. When before had anybody cared about she or her look? Then before had anybody loved to see her pretty? "Pollyanna, you did not answer my question. Why did you go to the Ladies' Aid in that absurd fashion?" "Yes, ma'am, I know, but please, didn't know it was absurd until I went and found out they'd rather see the poor girl than Jimmy. So then I wrote to my Ladies' Aiders, 'cause Jimmy's far away from them, you know, and I thought maybe he could be their little India boy, same as Aunt Polly was your little India girl. And Aunt Polly, you'll let me do your hair, won't you?" Aunt Polly put her hand to her throat. The old helpless feeling was upon her, she knew. "But Pollyanna, then the ladies told me this afternoon how you came to them. I was so ashamed. Pollyanna began to dance up and lightly on her toes. "And you didn't say I couldn't do your hair," she crowded triumphantly. "And so I'm sure it means just the other way around, sort of like I did the other way when Mr. Pendleton jelly that you didn't send, but didn't want me to say you didn't send. You know, now just wait just where you are. I'll get a comb." "But Pollyanna, remonstrated Aunt Polly, following the little girl from the room, panting upstairs after. "Oh, did you come here?" greeted her at the door Miss Polly's own room. "That'll be nicer yet. I've got the comb. Now sit down, please, right here. Oh, I'm so glad you let me do it. But Pollyanna, Miss Polly did not finish her sentences. To her helpless amazement, she found herself in a low chair before the dressing table, with her hair already tumbling about her ears under 10 eager but very gentle fingers. "Oh my, what pretty hair you've got," prattled Pollyanna. "And there's so much more of it than Mrs. Snow has too. But of course you need more anyhow, because you're well, and I can go to the place where folks can see it. My, I reckon folks will be glad when they do see it, and surprised too, 'cause you've hid it so long. Why, Aunt Polly, I'll make you so pretty everybody will just love to look at you." "Pollyanna," gasped a stifled but shocked voice from Veil of Hair, I'm sure I don't know why I'm letting you do this silly thing." "Why, Aunt Polly, I should think you'll be glad to have a look like this. Don't you look at pretty things? I'm ever so much happier when I look at pretty folks. Cause when I look at other kinds, I'm so sorry for them. But, and I just love to do folks' hair, purred Pollyanna constantly. I did quite a lot of them for the Lady Aiders, but there wasn't any of them as nice as yours. Mrs. White was so pretty nice, though, and she looked just lovely one day when I dressed her up in. Oh, Aunt Polly, I've just happened to think of something. But it's a secret I shouldn't tell. Now your hair, it's almost done and pretty quick. I'm going to leave you just a minute and you must promise not to stir nor peek even till I came back. Now remember, she finished as she ran from the room. Aloud, Miss Polly said nothing. To herself, she said that, of course, she should have once undo the observed work of her niece's finger and put her hair properly up again. As for peeking, just as she cared how, at that moment, unaccountably, Miss Polly caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror on the dressing table, and what she saw sent such a flush of rosy color to her cheeks that she only flushed the more at the sight. She saw faces, not young, it is true, but just now light with excitement and surprise. The cheeks were pretty pink, the eyes sparkle, the hair dark and still damp from the outdoor air, lay in loose wave above the forehead and curved back over the ears in a wonderful becoming line, with softening little curls here and there. So amazed and so observed that was Miss Polly with that she saw in the glass that she quite forgot her determination to do over her hair until she heard Pollyanna enter the room. Before she could move, then she felt a fold of something slip across her eyes and tied it in the back. Pollyanna, what are you doing?" she cried. Pollyanna chuckled. That's just what I don't want you to know, Aunt Polly, and I was afraid you would peek, so I tied the handkerchief. So, now sit still. It won't take but just a minute. Then I'll let you see." "But Pollyanna," began Miss Polly, struggling blindly to her feet. "You must take this off. You child! What are you doing?" she gasped as she felt a soft something slip upon her shoulder. Pollyanna only chuckled the more gleefully with trembling finger. She was strapping about her aunt's shoulder the fleecy fold of beautiful lace shawl, yellow from long years of packing away and fragile with lavender. Pollyanna had found the shawl the week before when Nancy had been regulating the attic, and had cured her to the day. Today there was no reason why her aunt, as well as Mrs. White of her western home, should not be dressed up. Her task completed, Pollyanna surveyed her work with eyes that approved, but that saw yet one touching wanting. Prominently, therefore, she pulled her aunt toward the sun parlor, where she could see a ballad red rose blooming on the trellis within reach of her hand. "Pollyanna, what are you doing? Where are you taking me to?" recoiled Aunt Polly, vainly trying to hold herself back. "Pollyanna, I shall not. It's just a sun parlor, only a minute. I'll have you ready now quicker in no time." "In no time," panted Pollyanna, reaching for the roses and thrusting the soft hair above Miss Polly's left ear. "There!" she exulted, untying the knot on the handkerchief and flinging the bit of Lincoln far from her. "Oh, Aunt Polly, now I reckon you'll be glad I dressed you up." For one dazed the moment Miss Polly looked her beckoned self and led her surrounding, she gave a low cry and fled to her room. Pollyanna, following the direction of her aunt, last dismayed gaze saw through the open window of the sun parlor the horse and gig turning in the driveway. She recognized at once the man who held the rein. Delightedly, she leaned forward. Dr. Chilton, do you want to see me? I'm up here." "Yes," smiled the doctor a little gravely. "Will you come down, please?" In the bedroom, Pollyanna found a flushed-faced, angry-eyed woman plucking at the pin that held lace shawl in place. "Pollyanna, how could you?" moaned the woman. "To think of the ringing me up like this and then letting me be seen!" Pollyanna stopped in dismay. "But you look lovely, perfectly lovely, Aunt Polly, and lovely," scorned the woman, flinging the shawl to one side and attacking her hair with a shaking finger. "Oh, Aunt Polly, please let the hair stay." "Stay like this? As if I would!" And Miss Polly pulled the lock so tightly back that the last curl stayed stretched dead at the end of her finger. "Oh dear, and you did look so pretty," almost sobbed Pollyanna as she stumbled through the door. Downstairs, Pollyanna found the doctor waiting in his gig. "I've prescribed you for a patient, and he sent me to get a description filled," announced the doctor. "Will you go?" You mean an errand to the drugstore? Asked Pollyanna a little uncertainly. I used to go some for the ladies' aiders. The doctor shook his head with a smile. Not exactly. It's Mr. John Pendleton. He would like to see you today if you'll be good as to come. It stopped raining, so I drove down after you. Will you come? I'll call for you and bring you back before 6 o'clock. I'd love to, exclaimed Pollyanna. Let me ask Aunt Polly. In a few moments she returned, hat in hand, but with a rather sober face. Didn't your aunt want you to go? Asked the doctor, a little differently as they drove away. Yes, sighed Pollyanna. She wanted me to go too much, I'm afraid. Wanted to go too much? Pollyanna sighed again. Yes, I reckon she meant she didn't want me there. You see, she said yes, run along, do. I wish you had gone before. The doctor smiled, but with his lips only. His eyes were very grave. For some time he said nothing. Then a little hesitatingly he said, Wasn't it your aunt I saw with you a few minutes ago in the window of the sun parlor? Pollyanna drew a long breath. Yes, that's what the whole trouble, I suppose. You see, I dressed her up in a perfectly lovely lace shawl I found upstairs, and I fixed her hair and put on a rose, and she looked so pretty. Didn't you think she just looked lovely? For a moment the doctor did not answer. When he did speak, his voice was low. Pollyanna could but just hear the word. Yes, Pollyanna, I thought she did look just lovely. Did you? I'm so glad. I'll tell her, nodded the little girl contentedly. To her surprise, the doctor gave a sudden exclamation. Never, Pollyanna. I'm afraid I shall have to ask you not to tell her that. Why, Dr. Chilton? Why not? I should think you'll be glad, but she might not be, cut in the doctor. Pollyanna considered this for a moment. That's so. Maybe she wouldn't. She sighed. I remember now. It was 'cause she saw you that she ran, and she spoke afterward. After being that in that rig, I thought as much, declared the doctor under his breath. Still, I don't see why, maintained Pollyanna, when she looks so pretty. The doctor said nothing. He did not speak again, indeed, until they were almost to the great stone house in which John Pendleton lay with the broken legs.